join with all our hearts and minds and absorption, and really with an intention to get to know Krishna personally, which he's actually revealing through all these stories and his beautiful pastimes. So let us together chant the Hare Krishna mantra once and bring our minds to these wonderful pastimes. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So finally, Krishna had come back. He had just met. Uddhav had returned from Vrindavan. After that, he went and met Kubja, and now he was at Akrura's place. And he had such a good conversation with Akrura. They discussed so much about life before Krishna came to Mathura, because Akrura was also an important minister. So even politically, he had a lot of insight, which Krishna really wanted to know and learn. And just see how Krishna plays his role. He's the super soul in everyone's heart. What is there that he does not know or needs to know or needs an insight? But yet he played this role so perfectly. He was genuinely inquisitive from Akrura. What's your view about this situation? What do you think we should do with that? And what's been your experience with this? And so Akrura was so pleased. And Akrura actually began to pray to Krishna, this very thing, that my dear Lord, you are the supreme personality of Godhead. You are the source of everything. You know everyone, but no one really knows you. And you are the cause of all causes. And he went on. And after hearing all this, just see how Krishna replied. Krishna said, my dear Uncle Akrura, thank you for always taking care of us. Thank you for protecting us, for guiding us. Thank you for just being here, supporting us, always being someone whom we can trust and we can go to in times of need. And with these sweet words, Krishna completely changed the entire atmosphere which was building up to his worship into again a very family relationship of uncle and nephews. So Akrura was just so mesmerized by Krishna. Now, Krishna, at the end of that stay, he said, my dear Uncle Akrura, I have a very important request from you. You know our very, very dear friends and cousins, the Pandavas. I'm so eager to know what exactly is happening in Hastinapur. How is my dearest aunt Kunti? What happened exactly after the demise of their father? How is Dhritarashtra, who's currently sitting on the throne, it seems, treating my dear friends, the Pandavas? How is Bhishma, that upholder of religion? How is Karna? How is, like this, Krishna inquired about every person. How is Vidura, that wise sage? And how is Kripacharya? How is Dronacharya? How are all these people? And Krishna was really inquisitive. And he was so concerned. He was so concerned about the Pandavas. He was just, his heart at that moment, Akrura actually felt such a deep spiritual satisfaction that, wow, how Krishna is so concerned about these dear friends and devotees, the Pandavas, and how he exactly wants to know the situation. And Akrura felt proud of being sent on this mission. He said, my dear Krishna, rest assured, I'm going to go and completely understand what's going on. And Krishna trusted him because, you see, this was actually a very politically delicate matter, what he actually wanted to find out. Today, we read the Mahabharata and it's an open secret of what went on. But do you think they were so silly that the whole world knew about the envy and how they were being treated? Of course not. Everything that we hear today, the house of lac which burnt, the poisonous cakes, nobody could figure out who did this. How did it happen? For the most of the world, they were all accidents. For the whole world, the Pandavas and Kauravas, they're the most loving brothers. For the whole world, oh, Dhritarashtra is such a just king. So remember, this is going on at that point. And Krishna sent this. So he had to choose someone who knows the art, who is themselves politically powerful. So people will, at least converse with him openly. And he exactly knows how to find out, how to speak, who to speak to, and exactly get an appraisal of the situation. And Sakrura was very proud. And Akrura already had some inkling of the situation which he felt wasn't right. You see, Krishna was playing the role of human, just guessing that I think things are not right. There is something wrong. Things just, I don't, I'm really concerned for the Pandavas. With that sentiment and emotion, he sent Akrura. And so Akrura left, and Akrura comes to Hastinapur. And Hastinapur at that time, which is currently located the what is today India's capital, New Delhi, is somewhere near there, was Hastinapur, which was also the capital of Bharat Varsha, and that's why Mahabharat is the name which comes from there. And so, in this gigantic city filled with the most powerful warriors and kings and princes and teachers and mystics and sages, it was the center of the world at that time. I don't know, maybe we could compare it to New York City or London, or maybe the combination of all the important cities in the world at that time. So it was a powerful place. It was the most happening place. And Akrura went there to meet the kings ruling this entire place and all the neighboring kingdoms who were under the emperor. So there was one emperor, and under that emperor, there were many, many little kingdoms and kings, and this was the emperor. Super, super powerful. And so Akrura went there. And already knowing him from so many years, he was part of the royalty and royal circles and royal social circles all over the planet at that time. He was very welcomed. And everyone recognized Akrura as a very genuine, gentle, and a real well-wisher of whoever he met and wherever he went. They didn't consider him a political spy or an envious king coming to inquire something. So they were very open and genuine. Whether it were even the Kauravas treated him with a lot of respect, and also the Pandavas. And he met all of them. He met Bhishma. Akrura stayed there for several months. Again, for us, when I was reading this, for us it's so easy because we know the Mahabharata now. But it took time for him to actually understand what's going on. What is behind? Is it evil intentions, which is driving the wrong things happening here? Or is it because he heard both things? He heard that things are justified. If the king, the blind king, was supposed to sit on the throne, but now he didn't because his brother was more competent, but now the brother is dead. So if the blind king sits and the children of the blind king can occupy the throne, they have no issues. So then why shouldn't they get the throne? So maybe dharmically it's right. And so many people felt so. But then was also the lineage of, all right, the main king died, so his sons should become, and they are the eldest sons. So there was so much complexity and so many opinions and so much conspiracies and so many things that had happened. So this delicate situation Akrura handled very well. He met Vidura, who was the wisest and a close, confidential associate of Dhritarashtra, perhaps one of the few people who could openly speak to Dhritarashtra and know his heart inside out. And he had a lot of conversation and understanding from Vidura. And then he met his Krishna's very, very dear aunt and devotee, Queen Kunti, was spoken about so much in the Bhagavatam and so many other beautiful literatures, because this wonderful queen. She was an exalted, spiritually accomplished being, and yet she wanted to do the best she could being a queen without the support and protection and the leadership of a king. And she was so vulnerable at that time. And when she met Akrura, the first few meetings were wonderful. But later, when Akrura really started digging into her heart, one day she broke down completely. She just couldn't take it anymore. She couldn't keep it together. And in front of him, she just let go. And tears were falling from her eyes. And in that situation, Akrura felt he needed some more help to just calm her down, assure her, and he called Vidura. And all three of them sat together for a long time. And the greatest solace which all of them had was Krishna. And Akrura started speaking about Krishna and how Krishna has sent me, and Krishna will come very soon and he will set everything right. And then Kunti, she became so absorbed in this message of hope and assurance, which was bound to come true, that she started speaking to Akrura as though he was Krishna himself. And she said, "Oh, thank you." And she started praying and she started speaking and she said, "How I'm longing to see you, how I'm longing to be with you, and how I'm longing to." And she started thanking Krishna that you saved us from the house of lack. You saved us when those poisonous cakes were fed to my children. You have saved us throughout, and you were the cause of the glorious birth of my sons. And Vidura and Akrura kept reminding her of that fact too, that your sons, they're not ordinary sons, they're the sons of the demigods. Indra's son, Arjuna, Yamaraja's son, Yudhishthir, the son of the god of the wind, Bhima, and the Ashwini twins, their sons, Nakul, Sahadev. These are your children. Victory is already on your side. There's no question. It's just a matter of time. And after many more meetings, Kunti was a little pacified. And after a long time, finally, so Akrura was very strategic in who he would meet, when, what conversations. His final meeting was with Dhritarashtra, the blind king, whom by now he had quite a good understanding of. And finally he meets Dhritarashtra. And they speak a lot. And Akrura very intelligently wanted to really speak to the heart of this king, because he had no ill intention. He didn't come here to spy on the size of the army, whether we can take over. He genuinely, as Krishna's messenger, wanted to establish dharma all over the world. And if the central leadership, the central place of the entire world, Hastinapur, was not following dharma, was not following morality and ethics and basic spiritual values, then what to speak of the rest of the world? And so he began to speak to the king. And he said, "My dear King Dhritarashtra, please know that a just king is equal to all his subjects. When a king acts thus neutrally with detachment, acting only on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he'll become all famous, he'll become all powerful, all his subjects will always be with him, prosperity will flourish in the kingdom." And so on. Akrura spoke for a long time. And Dhritarashtra himself, he was a very intelligent, he was the king of, representing the king of the world at that time. And he immediately understood what Akrura is saying. And in response, he said, "My dear Akrura, you're a gentle soul. Thank you for coming. Your words are really pacifying my heart. But let me be very honest with you. I cannot think straight anymore because I'm attached, and I know my affection and attachment is wrongly placed with my evil sons. But what can I do? This is destiny. The force of destiny is beyond my control." And this was always his excuse. Dhritarashtra justified his affection and attachment by saying, "Destiny is all powerful. What can I do? I know what I'm supposed to do, but I can't." And he was just too weak to do the right thing. He said, my dear Akrura, I know that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has descended in the Yadu dynasty, and he's here on a mission to uphold the principles of Dharma and uproot everything else which is not conducive to a happy, prosperous life of spiritual values and goals for every living being. I know that. Please convey my respects, my obeisances to him. And so Akrura, after hearing this message, he was happy on one side that he had quite well understood the situation and he could completely convey to Krishna. But he was so sad when he heard this. And in his mind, he was such a visionary. He knew where this is going to go. What is now going to come about in this dynasty and how many years and what will it take to set things right here? And so with a heavy heart and a happy heart, he left. And he went back and he met Krishna. And Krishna was so happy to meet him, welcomed him back. And now for several days more, he explained the entire situation to Krishna. And as Krishna heard, his heart was filled with anxiety. Just see how Krishna is so concerned. His heart was full of anxiety for his dear Pandavas, for Kunti, and the welfare of the whole world. And he immediately, when the conversations used to happen, he used to turn to Sankarshan, Balaram, elder brother, maybe we should do this. And it became such. And now Krishna took that on himself. From this point on, it became his mission that he had to set things right in Hastinapur. In the meanwhile, while all this was going on, the wives of Kamsa, Asti and Prapti, they had left for their father's home. And their father was the ruler of Magad, which is present day Bihar in India. And his name was Jarasandha. He was an extremely powerful, even individually, extremely strong, invincible warrior. And he had a huge alliance of evil kings. And he was one of the main allies of Kamsa. So ever since the death of Kamsa, he was just waiting to avenge his death. And now the last straw for him was when his daughters came back as widows and wept and cried at his feet that Krishna killed our husband Kamsa. Now Jarasandha's rage and anger knew no bounds. And he said, that's it. I take a vow. I'm going to wipe out the Yadu dynasty from the face of this earth. And I have the power and I have the strength. I have everything I need to accomplish it. I don't fear anything or anyone. I've heard about this little cheater who's done what he has done to wherever he goes and whatever he does. He's just a cheat. And I'm going to send him to the abode of death. He was so angry. He amassed an army of 23 Akshahonis of army. That's a massively, massively large army. And he started moving towards Mathura. And soon the news reached Krishna and Balaram and Ugrasen and the rulers of the city. And now there was such anxiety in the city. Everyone knew Jarasandha. People were aware of all these powerful kingdoms and kings at those times. And when they heard Jarasandha with his entire army is approaching Mathura, what's going to happen? We are a tiny city compared to his army is perhaps more than the population of our city. What's going to happen? And very soon that ocean of soldiers and elephants and horses and chariots and cannons and everything arrived. And just their arrival was so fearful to the residents of Mathura. And soon Krishna, Balaram, Ugrasen, and all of them had an emergency war meeting. They're thinking, what do we do? It's almost impossible to defeat him. And then Krishna and Balaram smiled, and they took permission. They said, give us a small contingent of soldiers, and we will take care of Jarasandha. Now, in the meanwhile, Jarasandha had already started coming onto the city. Already people on the outer walls, they were being killed. They were already causing trouble. So it was a really tense situation. Could have been hours before the entire city was completely destroyed. And Krishna and Balram, they went into the open field. At that time, Krishna invoked two chariots which came straight from Vaikuntha, the spiritual sky, and resplendent silver chariots, complete with all kinds of weapons and equipment and horses, and his eternal driver, Daruka, the chariot driver, and his famous bow, Saranga. And there were two chariots, one for him and one for Balaram. And it was complete with the maximum spiritual and material technology ever possible. We can't even imagine what was there on that chariot. And Krishna and Balaram were so pleased. And they put on their armors, they put on their helmets, and they took on their weapons. And Balaram took on his plow. Krishna took on the bow and arrow. And with all the city cheering and looking at this. And now, if you've been listening to the stories, this is the first time we're going to hear of Krishna in a full-fledged war. He's killed many people individually. He's done the individual things, but for the first time, he's going to take on an entire army, not an army, an ocean of military power with a small contingent of soldiers and his brother Balaram. And so Krishna and Balaram, they moved out into the army. And Jarasandha, from a distance, he was there too. Of course, he was there. And when he saw these two, for some time, he was absolutely captivated by this chivalrous beauty and strength and power which he was seeing right now in Krishna. And he was so mesmerized and thrilled by what he saw. And then a moment later, he forgot everything. And again, his anger and rage and envy towards Krishna came back. And with all his strength, he commanded his army, kill them, attack. And this huge ocean surrounded this small contingent of soldiers and Krishna and Balaram. And then Krishna and Balaram, they took on their bows and they twanged it. Just the twanging of that bow, and Krishna and Balaram blew their conches. Those sounds were so terrifying. They flooded the entire army and broke their hearts. Their hearts became full of fear. They got scared. What was that? Who are these two? What are they doing? And although they were seeing so many of their own soldiers on their sides, it gave them no hope. They just became so horrified at the thought of being here, and we know we're going to be killed by these two and we have no choice. Our master Jarasandha won't let us go. So might as well fight and die. And in fear, they attacked. And a massive war began. And Krishna and Balaram, while they were fighting here on the entire city of Mathura, everyone came onto the walls of the city, on the turrets and the guard towers and the watchtowers to look and see the queens and princesses. Everyone was there, and they were holding their breath. And when they saw this scene, that Krishna and Balaram, they saw the sun set in the ocean of soldiers, suddenly they lost all hope. And they said, why did we ever do this? Who sent these two? And these kinds of talks were going on. But in the meanwhile, Krishna and Balaram began to fight. And nobody has ever witnessed or seen such skill, such dexterity, such strength and power and display of mystic weapons and everything simultaneously. Krishna is described as a ring of fire, that there was no knowing when he put his hand in the quiver, when he set it to his bow, when he pulled it back, and when he released it. It was all one moment. And he was releasing millions of such arrows of different power and with different fiery strength and just slaughtering the entire army. And soon a river of blood, rivers of blood started flowing. And in those rivers were floating islands of dead elephants. And the wheels of the chariots floating in those rivers appeared like whirlpools. And the bows and the weapons were appearing like little weeds stuck in those rivers. And all the beautiful ornaments and the gold crowns and the jewels which fell off the dead soldiers made the shores of this beautiful crimson river. And in this way, Krishna and Balram was plowing through the army so fast. No one knew where he was and what he was doing and how he was killing so many soldiers. And it's so beautifully described that Krishna is very strict, but he's not malicious. He was strict because he wanted to set everything right. And therefore he was strict with those who came to support Adharma, support Jarasandha, but he wasn't malicious. And therefore he sent all these soldiers whom he was killing back to the spiritual sky. He liberated all of them. And very soon, the army of Jarasandha reduced more and more and more. And finally, when almost everyone was killed, Krishna had to take a decision. And he had actually already decided this. He was strategizing. Should I kill Jarasandha and take over his army? Should I kill his army and kill him? Should I kill his army and let him go? Yes, that seems to be the best, because if I kill the entire army and let him go, he will amass another army and come again. And then I'll have an opportunity to kill all these evil, rid the earth, which has been overburdened by these evil warriors with so much strength and might. So let him go. And so Krishna killed everything, and finally only Jarasandha was left. And next time, we will see what happens after that, when Jarasandha is there, standing alone, the most powerful warrior on earth at that time, and his entire army is slaughtered. He's standing alone, and Balram binds him with a rope and drags him to Krishna's feet. And not even a single soldier of that small contingent with Krishna was killed. Everyone surrounds Jarasandha, and we will see what happens next. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful night and a wonderful week ahead. May these pastimes and stories always fill our heart with spiritual wonder and devotion towards Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.